The opening sequence of episode 21 sees the return of Armin's narration and is once again a bit of a tone setter for everything to follow, with him clearly introducing the two sides of this ever-ongoing war and laying out the most dangerous aspect of this upcoming stage of the battle. Not only is the enemy a Titan shifter, they are also working among us. So again, as with all of Armin's narrations, it is just another turning point in history. As for the title of the episode, A Decisive Blow. This one, I think, can be interpreted a couple of different ways. First off, the obvious. It is Annie's very decisive blow that takes off Eren's head along with a tree just for good measure. And on top of that, not only does the strike end the fight in a single blow, it is also a very decisive decision on Annie's part, which we'll get to in just a second. Secondly, those are the blows of the Levi squad, with each one being extremely precise in what it is trying to achieve. Be it attempting to take out Annie's eyes or her ankles or whatever, each one was about as decisive as a blow as you could realistically pull off. That is, of course, until Annie retaliated, but don't think about that too much. And lastly, I think you could also think of it as everything surrounding Eren here, be it transforming in the first place or all of those strikes he throws at Annie. Again, we'll get to it in just a moment, but each and every one of his actions was designed to end the fight then and there. Only, you know, Annie's kick was a bit more decisive if I do say so myself. Moving into the episode itself, however, we see Erwin expand on his hypothesis that we left off on last time, with him pointing out the quite alarming similarities in how the Colossal Titans managed to just poof out of existence a few times now, and how the female Titan might have also disappeared now, suspecting that both might have been using ODM gear to get out quickly. Which, of course, links back to his little lost in thought moment we saw in the previous episode. Though what is the most interesting aspect of this is the exchange that plays out between him and Hanji. She initially responds by saying that such an outcome is unlikely. When Eren emerged from his Titan back in Trost, he was missing both his uniform and ODM gear. We as the viewers of course know that he was chilling in the Titan's stomach and it probably just got lost there, but they are unaware of this fact. And so effectively, Hanji functions as the 100% by-the-book rational scientist here, only basing her assumptions on past concrete evidence. Erwin, on the other hand, deliberately tries not to confine himself to these entirely rational plans because, well, Eren turning into a Titan isn't entirely rational in the first place. And so, he hypothesizes that slipping out of Titan form might rather be a case of mastering the process, noting how Eren has barely even learned to transform in the first place, let alone use it tactically. Something we'd of course see proven throughout seasons 2 and 3. And this whole difference in perspective and thought process was always one of my favorite things about this duo. I feel like writers often have trouble conveying exactly what makes a character intelligent. And so, more often than not, they just make them walking encyclopedias of random knowledge, or sometimes even just pull the good old "they're smart, trust me" card, they will always be right, and just basically make the characters make perfect decisions which realistically no one could have ever made with the information they had. With Erwin and Hanji on the other hand, we clearly see that both are excellent in what they do, but we also very explicitly see how gaps in information doom their plans. Annie's scream threw off most of Erwin's plan here, and her suddenly hardening forced them to search for an entirely different way of fighting her. And interestingly, our very own Armin is sort of a mix of Hanji's cold and science-minded thinking, and Erwin's all-out battle plans, often looking to exploit the human aspect of his opponent rather than a technical one. Something we'd see shine plenty more in the future, so I won't ramble on about that now. And speaking of our glorious ballhead, as we cut to him and Jean, we see that they too are deep in thoughts. Only they are of course completely unaware of the horrors actually going on within the forest. Instead, they talk about how Erwin might have even known something like this would happen, with Armin pointing to the fact that it was likely exactly because no one interfered in Trost, isolating Eren's Titan as the thing that likely changed everything. With the benefit of hindsight, we of course know that they are right on the money, to the point that we even know that Reiner and Burrito did consider transforming and going after him. Though what I personally find the most amusing here is how Armin continues with this line of thinking, coming to the conclusion that whoever they're fighting right now was right there in Trost to see it all go down. And the flashback that is shown to us literally gives us not one, but all of the Marley squad just chilling there in full glory. So yes, even if you were to just check them by elimination, just another good old case of Isayama cheekily bonking us over the head with the answers countless times without anyone ever noticing. And the best part is that, don't forget, we are still yet to address the whole plan discrepancy and how that exposed Reiner. So in-universe, in but a few short hours, their whole world is about to turn upside down. Though before we get to that, we still have to deal with the assassin on their tails, and it's as Erwin suspects that the female titan will reappear, she of course does just that. Once more accompanied by that dissonant, overbearing chase music we've heard already. And also note how Erwin here elaborates a little more on what we talked about a second ago, saying that they cannot limit themselves to normal strategy if they want to get ahead. They must take these costly risks that the enemy simply cannot predict. Without getting stuck in the weeds by jumping around too much, Armin would soon channel this line of thinking extremely well, with him even outpacing Erwin himself during the Battle of Shiganshina when it comes to luring out Reiner and Burrito. But of course, plenty more on that when we get there. Though it's here where everything just goes off the rails, as the Levi squad is now forced to engage Annie with no backup. First off, I absolutely love the ever-shifting tone that we see here. Again, we open with that dissonant, overbearing chase tone. But that then fades into this cacophony of instruments as Eren is forced to make a decision of his next move, with the music capturing that sense of chaos going inside of him. Though as the Levi squad charges in, the music soon turns to triumph as they begin to slowly and methodically carve Annie up. Though, once again, those illusions of hope are suddenly cut right off, as Annie focuses her regeneration and retaliates, wiping out the entirety of the Levi squad in just a few seconds. And here, I think the wider implications of this entire juxtaposition are super important. I've seen quite a few people talk about how the Levi squad are basically pointless. They are introduced as these titan killing machines, just listing off their KD ratios. They are then sidekicks for like 2 episodes and then all of them just suddenly die. But as is often the case with these wacky Attack on Titan takes, personally, I think that is missing the entire bigger picture. I think the whole goal here was to introduce them as interesting personalities, to then play up your typical power of friendship angle, with Eren even going through his whole monologue of, oh, they know each other's moves without saying a word, etc, etc. All of it makes you think that this bond will be rewarded. But no, literally moments after that, all of them are wiped out. And I think it's exactly this hope being just completely and utterly crushed in front of his very eyes that begins to destroy his view of the world. Many times already, we've seen Eren talk about how inaction gets people killed. And just a few episodes ago, we see him go through the motions of whether or not to transform. And this encounter here deliberately challenges that belief. He trusted his allies and did not transform during Annie's initial appearance. As a result, countless soldiers died as simply distractions. He trusted his allies here and continued going on ahead alone. And again, he was punished for it. To me, not seeing that gradual loss of trust and hope in Eren is largely ignoring the whole reason why he even goes against everyone in the end. It's moments exactly like these that convinced him that he must go on alone if he doesn't want anyone else to die. The reason why he pushes Mikasa and Armin away is because of this. And also in a in-universe sense, I like how we don't even linger on this loss. Yes, this was the elite squad, but if that was all it took for this plan to work, I mean, we wouldn't even be here, right? And another thing that I adore here is how Levi's whole speech of not knowing the right decision is handled here. Of course, the whole cliche here is that a character claims to not know what the right call is. But it always just so happens that their call is the correct one. But oh boy, that could not be further from the truth here. Levi saying that he is unsure of what to do here is literally proven. Would Eren transforming change that? Well, we don't know. And I just love that sense of realism that they do acknowledge the fact that, at the end of the day, they are largely gambling here. Not a single one among them has the full picture here. Though with that, Eren has made up his mind and wants to end this battle with one decisive blow. Oh hey, I said the title of the episode again. And so he too pops his Titan form, and it is time to throw down. And because I already have, and will definitely continue to mention sound design in the future, one thing I want to note here are the Titan roars. As I've mentioned before, I am seemingly a rare sub and dub enjoyer. I've seen both countless times, and my perfect mix of VAs and audio mastering would probably be somewhere in between both. But one thing I think the sub has always done magnitudes better are the Titan roars. In the sub, they sound guttural. It's this deep roaring shout that just strikes fear into everyone around them. Whereas the dub, it is this sort of higher pitched screech rather than a roar. Personally, I just found that deep growl much more Titan-like, especially with that bellow just echoing throughout the forest. The whole thing just hits so much harder for me in the sub. Though yeah, plenty more on sub/dub differences very soon. And before we get to them clashing, we jump on over to the midcards describing the horses the scouts use. Nothing too groundbreaking here aside from the whole outrunning Titans aspects, as this would be very important both here as well as in many future missions. Returning to the forest though, it is time to rumble. And as per usual, Wit's animation of the hand-to-hand combat is just absolutely excellent. I just love how dynamic and fluid the action is here. The sheer number of creative camera angles here is just something else entirely. And the sound design here is also just perfect in my opinion. Note how for the first minute or so of the fight, there is no dialogue in the scene whatsoever. There is no tropey monologue or anything like that. Rather, it once again uses music to frame what we're seeing. Particularly with the Colossal's theme now accompanying Eren's Titan, clearly painting him as the one now leading the charge. And on a similar note, notice the duality of Eren and Annie. Eren here is putting his full strength behind each and every shot. Every single one of these punches is designed to end the fight with a single decisive blow. Oh hey, I said the title of the episode again. But it's as Eren pins Annie down that we finally hear some of his inner monologue. He blames himself for not transforming sooner, and says that it's his trust in his squad that got them all killed. And again, note how his punches are so charged that he literally breaks his arms. He is charged by pure hatred and rage, to the point that he even begins to twitch in what honestly just seems like insanity. Though perhaps most importantly, even after blaming himself, he still says that ultimately it was your fault. Which again just creates this perfect cocktail of blame for everything that would come later in the story. Annie, on the other hand, has played quite passively, which begs the question of, is she having second thoughts about striking Eren? Is she scared? Keep in mind that none of the shifters have ever faced another shifter in just an all-out battle to death. Yet Eren is charging her without a second thought. Killing Marco clearly still weighs on her, and she once again wiped out countless people just now. Is Eren the straw that'll break the camel's back? Or is it simply a case of her not being back to full strength yet, and she's simply waiting to regain depth perception through her second eye? Her fighting style is very precise after all. Whatever the case, for the time being, she doesn't even try to grapple Eren, something we know for a fact she excels in. Though as Eren begins to go in his aforementioned rage-fueled twitching, she finally realizes that he absolutely intends to kill her here and now. And it's then that she simply has to get up. And with both now back on their feet, we see another absolutely terrifying roar from Eren. One which, by my read at least, does actually shake Annie. And once again, we have that duality of their fighting. Annie places one extremely precise blow right to his jaw, immediately eliminating his ability to get her out of the Titan. Eren, on the other hand, once again puts his full weight behind each and every strike and quite literally sends Annie flying through the air. And it's after this that Annie finally makes her decision. In a few moments, she'll be outnumbered, and at this point, the gloves are off and everyone here just intends to kill her. And so, she decides that she will do the same. And just like that, she makes her one last, extremely decisive blow, taking off half of Eren's head along with a tree in an instant. and so Eren is captured. This, as per usual, begs the standard set of questions. First off, why not take Eren's Titan here and now? Well, the simple answer is that none of them know he has the Founding Titan. The only person aware of that fact is currently Rod. But okay, if they don't know he has the Founder, why not capture the Attack Titan at least? Well, there too, I think the answer is quite simple. Combining two Titans in a single person only marginally improves their utility, while also locking away two separate Titans for future inheritors. Why have one Titan super soldier when you can have two, each with their own unique power? But again, we will talk about the whole rationale of capturing Eren a lot more in Season 2, so let's just not waste too much time on that now. Though a smaller scene we see in the midst of all of this that I just absolutely loved is Levi flying through the forest and just seeing his squad dead on the floor one by one. Again, watch the Levi OVA if you haven't, but just like with Eren, it's just yet another thing to slowly chip away at his conscience. For Levi, it is almost like a curse. Everyone around him dies, and he is always the only one left standing, which obviously results in extremely strong survivor's guilt. And with our other Ackermann, we see a equally tragic scene, as we see her witness Annie capture Eren right in front of her eyes. But that twist we see in Mikasa is just beautiful. She goes from that protective and caring mindset of, no, please give him back. But a second later, she is full-blown Ackermann and it is just glorious. Made 10 times more glorious by the strings version of Call Your Name in the background accompanying this brutal juxtaposition. And with that, let us jump right into episode 22, where the opening sequence is another case of Armin narrating the events thus far and dropping us right into the action. Because obviously, this would be the absolute climax of the mission. And so, his usual narration just once again implies a major turning point in history. As for the title of the episode, The Defeated. And in classic Attack on Titan fashion, it is just about the most depressing title you could come up with, because in this case, I think it is clearly referring to both sides of the conflict. The cycle of hatred is of course a constant throughline in the story, and that is also very, very true by the end of the mission. We'll get to it in a second, but by the time we're done, Annie is left crying under a tree while the scouts have lost countless people and Eren too is simply crying. And the worst part? Both sides went home empty-handed. Yes, in the wider story, this mission would ultimately lead to exposing both Annie as the female Titan and Reiner as the mole. But currently, this whole deal achieved nothing, neither for the scouts nor Marley. Moving into the episode itself, we pick up where we left off with our two Ackermanns now too going after Annie. And here, with the good old 9 Chiku track, don't ask, I do not know why the Attack on Titan soundtracks are so oddly named, like, why is it called UC Big Girl? Why is it called 9 Chiku? Why are some of them just random numbers? I don't know. But yes, the whole duality of the Ackermanns are also on full display here. Both Levi and Mikasa have just lost people close to them. This loss prompts Mikasa to become emotional, she lashes out. Levi, on the other hand, retreats even further inward, he becomes even more detached. But above all, Eren or no Eren, both are dead set on bringing Annie down. And to illustrate that, we quite literally see a red glint in Levi's eyes. Almost as if to very literally show us that he is seeing red right now. And that dichotomy of him appearing calm and collected while on the inside he is just burning with complete hatred is perfect. And his solo charge here from an animation standpoint is also just excellent. With him zipping up her arm in an instant, which immediately throws our very perceptions of what we'd see upside down. With the elite squad, they methodically chipped away at Annie to find an opening. With Levi, on the other hand, there is that one moment of calculation and planning, but literally seconds later, he is charging her at lightning speed. And then that brief cut to black and white, with his strikes sounding almost like cannon shots as he lodges his blades into her eyes. I just love how weighty and powerful his movements feel here. And also, note how he alone does exactly what the scouts were doing together. First the eyes, then the legs, then find an opening. They were all using Levi's technique, which again speaks to the whole his word is law, we echo him, we become him attitude of their squad. And man, that panning shot through the trees as we see Levi just carve Annie up is absolutely incredible. Though yes, Mikasa's feelings do get the best of her and she does somewhat throw off Levi's plan. And again, this is another one of those small details that will be super important in the bigger story. Mikasa is an absolute monster in combat, everyone knows that. But when it comes to Eren, that can get very complicated. Something that is on full display here, as well as numerous other times in the future. All of which make her turn in the final season that much more important. But again, not to pull a future Eren here, we will leave all of that for when we get there, as there will be a long conversation to be had around all of that. Though what is perhaps my favorite detail here is that once we see Levi and Mikasa zip off, they look back to see Annie's mangled titan slumped up against a tree with a tear rolling down her face. And in an instant, everything we thought we knew about the female titan just changed. Suddenly, it turned from the cold-blooded, ruthless killing machine with absolutely no other goal than wiping out the scouts, to a lone defeated beast simply crying. And in this case, I really don't think there's much to deconstruct. At this point, Annie has gone against the people who she had clearly begun growing somewhat close to. She also likely has a pretty good inkling that she might have blown their cover. She has also just killed countless soldiers in the past 30 minutes alone. And all of that was for nothing. Her one and only hope of getting Eren and returning to her father once again slips right through her fingers. I'm saying it a lot today, but once again we'll be talking about this duality of the warriors very soon as well. With each and every one of them growing ever more conflicted and wondering whether they can just cut their losses and return to Marley. And again, the inevitable question of, why didn't Reiner and Burrito come to her aid here, especially with most of the elites already being wiped out? Well, just like we talked about last time, the mission first and foremost is to capture the Founder, and this was simply not it. Again, none of them are aware that he has the Founding Titan, so capturing Eren right now is just a side quest. Losing Annie, yeah, that wouldn't be cool, but like we'd see later in the Shiganshina arc, they weren't ready to go against Marley itself to save Annie, and Zeke was there to quickly realign their sights on their true goal, capturing the Founding Titan above all. So the answer, to me at least, is simple. Helping Annie right now simply isn't worth blowing their cover. Only flaw in that thinking is of course that, unbeknownst to them, they have already blown their cover and everyone involved has very much taken note of that fact. Again, there is a very good reason why the right flank would be entirely cut off from Eren at the start of Season 2, but more on that then. And yes, as you might be thinking, if they were aware that Eren does have the Founding Titan now, yes, potentially, they were minutes away from winning this war here and now. If Bertolt were to just nuke the forest, more than likely they could have gotten Eren out. Though, with all that said, just as quickly as the mission started, it has come to a close. We see the scouts just attempting to round up the losses and begin their way back to the Kalaneth district. And to rub salt further into the wound, we check in with the scouts' parents, all of whom talk about how they're coming home, as the extra somber piano version of Call Your Name plays in the background. And to rub it even further, as we cut to the scouts, it is complete silence. They don't speak, they don't cry, they simply round up the corpses. And to top it all off, we briefly linger on the small scar left behind by the bite mark. And the beautifully tragic part here is that we never even find out who this was. We obviously know that it was one of the Levi squad, but we never learn who. Which just builds on that thought of, once you're dead, and whatever once was no longer matters. Clearly, they want to honor their fallen comrades, but in their world, that last bit of respect is unfortunately a luxury that they cannot afford. And that's exactly what we see as we jump to Erwin, who's told that they were unable to recover many of the bodies from the forest. Something he responds to by saying to just write them down as missing in action. Dieter, one of the scouts, obviously protests this, saying that it is inhumane. They gave their lives for the mission. The least they can do is retrieve their bodies for their families. But Levi is there to echo that idea of, you confirmed he's dead, right? Well, then he's dead. That is final. drawing a very clear line between looking for potentially lost allies who you can still save, and simply not wanting to waste more people searching for lifeless corpses. Like we've heard many times already, and like we'll hear plenty more, in order to beat back the monsters, they must sacrifice their humanity and become monsters themselves. And this is exactly that. And before we return to the sadness, we jump on over to the eye catcher describing the Survey Corps wagons and the reappearance of the legendary
Ultra Hard Steel
in their suspension systems. But importantly, it talks about how they can maintain a speed of around 20 kilometers per hour, which is by no means a coincidence. As just last episode, we saw how their selectively bred special horses can reach speeds of 80 kilometers per hour, and that the horses are just about the only means of outrunning titans. So yeah, sure would be a shame if we had to outrun some titans, huh? Returning to the episode, we see that Dieter did go against Erwin's orders and went after the body of Ivan after all, simultaneously alerting the titans to their presence. Oh, and we have to outrun the titans now. And yes, once again we see that last bit of remaining humanity dooms them. Yes, leaving them behind is not doing right by their families. But Dieter's irrational decision achieved something even worse, with the scouts now being forced to leave behind all of their debts just because Dieter couldn't put aside his personal feelings. And with that, we see this hollow, almost disassociative scene as the bodies just roll away, with us very briefly seeing Petra's face as her lifeless corpse just falls beneath the foot of the Titans. And yet again, after seeing something like that, or worse yet, doing something like that, none of them can ever be the same again, right? Just throwing your allies overboard is horrifying, and this is a huge chip in everyone's armor. Which again, is why I wholly disagree with the belief that the Levi squad are not important characters. They are instrumental in grounding us with an extremely personal connection to these select few soldiers, rather than just having countless randos. And another beautiful addition here is Levi giving Dieter a scout emblem, claiming that it was Ivan's. Effectively saying, we might not be able to honor the dead by bringing them back home, but we can always honor the fact that they once lived and carry that with us. Which is a, admittedly quite cliche, but beautiful way of looking at things in my opinion. I won't get super real with you here because frankly, I just want to talk about fantasy shenanigans instead of getting super dark. But the whole, don't be sad that it's over, be glad that it happened saying is a way of thinking that I really try to live by myself as well. And while I don't want to get too dark about real life stuff, I will very much get dark in universe because fact of the matter is, we do not know if it was Ivan's. In fact, if I had to bet on whose emblem it actually was, I think it was one of the Levi squads, or more specifically, Petra's. He clearly lingered by their corpses just a second ago, and Petra was always singled out as the one closest to Levi. So I think what we're actually watching here are both of them coping in their very unique way. Levi wanted to keep a piece of them, but since unfortunately he knows loss all too well, he likely just realized that Dieter needs closure much more than he does. And so, he gave it up, lying that it was in fact Ivan's. For Levi, this was more so about moving on. For Dieter, it was more so holding on to what once was. And also note how he isn't berated for going against orders or anything. Just like we saw with Levi and Eren, he is under no illusions that he is the one making the right call, and he understands loss. So from Levi's perspective, Dieter just did what he thought was right, and no matter how stupid it was, putting many others in danger, you still don't see him berated in the slightest. Cutting to Eren though, we see a flashback/dream of sorts, where he first sees the same blue-purplish flower we've seen before, which, as I've mentioned before, drawing on some other German work which are a clear inspiration for Attack on Titan's world building, likely just symbolizes the whole everlasting love and coming-of-age aspect between Eren and Mikasa. But much more importantly, we see the cyclical, and I mean cyclical in the very literal sense, nature of the story, as Eren returns to Shiganshina, the day when his fate was sealed. Only here, we suddenly switch from the kid Eren to the present-day Eren stepping forward. On initial viewing, obviously returning to where it all began is just a very quick way of grounding the story and reminding us of why we're even doing all of this. Something that would be very important in just a moment as they return to the Kalanet district. But with what we know now, I think there is a very good case to be made that this is Eren wandering through his memories and sending back visions. As per usual though, much more on the memory shenanigans very soon. And also, I don't think I mentioned this in the first episode video, but I know that there are quite a few people who are absolutely convinced that the person right here is actually the final season Eren, just sorta chilling there. And while I do enjoy some tinfoil speculation myself, I honestly think it is reading a tad too much into it, and it is just some generic dude with a black shirt and somewhat longer hair. Maybe it is a case of Isayama later designing the post-time skip Eren after this, but even that just sorta seems like a stretch to me. But whatever the case, Eren wakes up and is basically caught up on everything that happens. And just like that, we mirror the scenes from episode 1. Only this time, Eren isn't that naive cheering kids. He is the one listening to all the dismissals of the public, hearing how they spent less than 12 hours outside of the walls and were simply slaughtered, and that's about it. But as he raises up to yell back at them, he still sees kids cheering for him, just like he did way back when. And I just adore that constant emotional dissonance here. When the mission began, we were on top of the world. We captured Trust, we had a Titan on our side. Erwin had a concrete plan of luring out a mole, everything was in our favor. But alas, we find ourselves returning exactly just like in episode 1, even before Shiganshina fell. Seemingly, absolutely nothing has changed. And yet again, because this is Attack on Titan, of course it has to be depressing. So as they walk by, Petra's father runs up to Levi saying that they want to speak with him before they see her. And then saying he's just worried and he thinks that Petra is still too young to get married. This is one of those scenes that is never fully explained, so I think it is up to the viewer or reader to decide what it was implying. Was she actually going to get engaged with someone? Was it with Levi? Was she simply lying to her parents because she wanted to assure them that she'd be fine on her own? Was this just Petra's dad misunderstanding her admiration of Levi as their captain? Was he deliberately prodding at Levi to find out if there was anything there? Whatever your interpretation of the scene was, one thing is very clear. Her life was tragically cut short. And the sheer horror on Levi's face as he realizes I have to tell him that is just crushing. And that ridiculous emotional dichotomy as we hear that somber music, with her father just going on and on and on.
Far too young to be thinking about marriage. She has so much yet to experience before settling down.
But Levi never says a word, he simply keeps walking. And the same is true for Erwin. The crowd screams at him, everyone blames him, but they simply keep walking. And as Armin's narration fades in, saying that the casualties they suffered were enough to completely humiliate the scouts as a whole, we see Eren, who too is simply crying as Mikasa tries to comfort him, very clearly already drawing parallels between the warriors and the scouts. And with Eren, we obviously also have quite an intense mix of emotion. First off, the scouts lost their authority of Eren, meaning that at this very moment, he is led to what he believes to be an execution. And in retrospect, we actually also know to be death due to Rod Reiss wanting the Founding Titan. Though secondly, like I already mentioned, that never-ending cycle of loss is clearly not lost on anyone. From Eren's point of view, they really did achieve nothing. He reached his dream of becoming a scout, he ventured beyond the walls, even used a Titan. But all of that amounted to absolutely nothing. If they couldn't achieve anything with the entirety of the elite squad and even a Titan on their side, is there any chance for them left? And lastly, to end on a fun overanalysis note, Eren just had a dream, didn't he? Let me just put up these two awakenings side by side and I will let you think about that. Wonder what else he might have seen there. Huh. Though with that, those are episodes 21 and 22, and also the 57th Expedition Beyond the Walls wrapped up. A bit of a downer this time round, but I guess we should get used to it considering the story yet to come. But yes, with that, next time we'll be right back to Erwin's big plan and finally address the elephant in the room. The discrepancy in the plans, the alarming similarities of the female Titan Annie, and some extremely specific pieces of information Armin threw out as bait. That said, I hope to see you back next time as we get into the absolute climax of the first season and continue overanalyzing Attack on Titan. And that's the video. Because you've made it all the way to the outro, let me share some future Attack Titan memories and tell you that the next video is another 35-minute chonker. So I hope you're looking forward to that. And yes, it is another double episode. That said, I want to say a massive thank you to our current patrons and YouTube members who allow me to produce even more of these for you all. And let's also give a warm welcome to the newest member of the team, Darth Cool. Without you, there'd be a whole lot less of my ramblings, so seriously, thank you, thank you. Other than that, I want to say thank you very much for watching, I hope you have a great day, and hopefully, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye!